I wish I had have really learnt it, and what I'm trying to instill in my kids is to talk about and be comfortable talking about money. Just how money works, how it influences the world, how it influences your creativity. And what I'm really passionate about is, helping creatives understand that importance of financial literacy. And APRA plays a key part of that because we pay royalties. So income, money to music creators. So it's really for people that are releasing music, trying to understand the many buckets and revenue streams that are actually owed to them.
Hello everybody, welcome to season 2 of Black Wealth Connect. I go by Fabrice Omenko, I'm your host, and today we have a very special guest that's just come in, and we do apologize, we probably haven't given a proper preparation time, but I think that this episode is going to be very inspiring, especially for a lot of artists in the music scene, and also the importance of ownership. Because I know that we've had a lot of, me and my host, we've had a lot of conversations about how important it is for us to also bring financial literacy in pretty much anything that we do, whether it's music, whether it's property, whether it's just having that understanding in general. It's very important. And my guest is a senior manager within people and culture, works for APRA, built a good relationship with her over the past year, and a lot of the conversations that we've had have been very inspiring. So without any further ado, I want to introduce Gillian Dunn. How are you today?
I'm good. It's very hot today, but thanks, Fabrice. I appreciate the opportunity and the time.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And hopefully I've said your name correctly.
You
because I know
have.
I've probably said it 1,000 times prior to this. I was trying to make sure that I got it correct. So I'm happy that I've pronounced it well.
Yes.
Awesome. So I guess today's episode is, we're going to be talking a lot about ownership when it comes to what you specialize in, which is a lot of music artists, and how important it is for them to own their own rights. And at the same time too, I'm going to bring that back into, property and the importance of financial literacy. And it kind of ties in because, as you've mentioned in our past conversations, a lot of artists don't fully understand from your experience what it is after, for example, they've had a hit. They've been able to achieve a lot of success in a short period of time, but how it is to manage that money, whether they invested in themselves or whether they invested in whichever department they want to put it in, but financial literacy ties into that. So before we get into all of that, are you able to tell me just your upbringing? Because even you yourself personally, I don't think I've been able to ask these questions. So were you born here? What's your background?
Sure.
Are you able to, elaborate on that?
So I wasn't born here. I was born in South Africa, in Durban, and have called Sydney home since I was 4. And so that experience was interesting at the time. So that was in the early 80s. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, which is 3 girls, 2 boys. So that's, always full of laughter, love, tribulations, and all of the challenges of migrating a family of 7 in the early 80s to Australia. So we arrived through an apprenticeship opportunity that Australia had at the time, and my dad was a panel beater by trade.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't do schooling or anything in South Africa, but I was the only kid that didn't. So my older 4 siblings all pretty much did early schooling there. Then grew up on the northern beaches of Sydney. So again, that was a bit of somewhat of a culture shock in the 80s, sort of, navigating that. But we really were just about, and my parents were just about, come here, let's fit in, we're starting our new life. And, the reason that they did that was because, it was the height of apartheid in South Africa. So it was just an opportunity to come here and have a different experience and a better life in terms of, at that time. Wow. So grew up by the beach, love the water. Yeah. And have always had music and the creative sort of side really a passion of mine. Music's always been part of our life and in our house growing up. just listening and appreciate. So none of us really were musicians ourselves, but just really that appreciation. And growing up on the Northern Beaches at that time was all about me just trying to find my way, where I sort of fitted in, and spent a lot of time just, I suppose, meeting and spending time with different people. But played a lot of sport growing up.
What were some of the sports you were into?
Did dancing.
Okay.
Netball was the main one.
Oh, okay.
That I did. Played basketball a little bit, but
Yeah.
that was my sister's domain.
Oh,
I never
okay.
really took it, even though I was taller than her.
Yeah.
But I don't know, netball was just really what stuck for me.
Yeah.
And what I did the longest.
Yeah.
And then, finished high school and didn't really know what I wanted to do. And bounced around for a few different courses, tried uni, didn't work out, and then travelled for a bit throughout Europe, and then came back and I was doing this course, which I can't even remember. It was something like graphic design. It was helping people transition into work or just gain a bit of skill. But then I saw this job for a company I'd never heard of called APRA, and thought, I'll just go check that out. But I really had no idea what it was about. It was just a reception entry-level role.
Yeah.
But as soon as I got there and did the interview, it was a really interesting space because what it does is support musicians and pay royalties and supports creatives. But I suppose that's me sort of in a nutshell.
That's awesome. So whereabouts in the Northern Beaches did you grow up? Like which specific part?
So Balgala,
Okay.
Queenscliff sort of way.
Yeah.
That's where I went to school.
Okay.
All girls Catholic school.
So you did all your schooling here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But your other siblings, some of
Yeah.
them did theirs in South Africa?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So do you
And
still
then-
remember South Africa well or not really?
I don't really at
you
all.
don't
I was
remember.
quite,
You're
I
young
was
when
young.
you-
All I do remember is, my dad dragging me across the tarmac because I did not want to go. And that's still a story that's sort of shared that my girls get quite, humour out of. But I think even then I knew it was like, because that's home, right? And I was so little, I just didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah.
But it was just about, we got to get on this plane.
Wow. So you still remember?
And-
you still remember being dragged on to that?
That's so snippets.
Yeah.
And my parents always, I know people will just tell you about that story, I don't really remember, but that is one sort of memory that I have, and riding a red tricycle on a veranda in Wentworth.
Wow, that is unbelievable. So basically you being, young at that point in time, what was the experience for like your parents, the transition? Have they ever told you coming to Australia, something new for them, it's not South Africa anymore, the politics are different, the environment's different. What was it like for them to adapt to Australia?
Because I was so young at the time, so a lot of it almost feels like a bit of a dream state, but it was a transition. So even though...
For your parents, yeah?
Yeah, for my parents. So, my mum didn't really... she had to sort of leave her mum in South Africa. My dad's mum came with us a bit later and sort of moved in and transitioned. But I think they didn't really express a lot of it. A lot of it was it was a bit of a survival mode. So when we landed, we were a family of 7 and we stayed in a 2-bedroom flat with family friends who were a family of 4. So that I do actually remember, that unit. And we were just sort of all camped out, and that's just how it happened. It was like... they were South African as well, so it was just sort of different families arriving at different times. And then our cousins came after. We weren't all in that unit. We had moved to somewhere else. Yeah. But it was just about, getting established. They had already been here. And it was just about fit in. Let's just assimilate. This is, But for me, being so young, I think it was a really confusing time where you just adapted. And when you come from a family that big, you just sort of are... and the 5th one, you're letting them juggle knives at that point.
Especially you being the youngest.
Relaxed,
especially you being the youngest. Wow, out of 7.
Yeah, out of 5 kids.
Out of 5 kids, yeah.
And so it was just a lot of transition and just working stuff out on the fly.
Gotcha.
But, Dad finding work and Mum eventually finding part-time work and stuff. But mainly, just remembering hanging out with my older siblings and stuff at home. Yeah. And sort of working it all out.
That's interesting. So obviously your dad's a panel beater by trade?
He was,
yeah.
But he then throughout the years transitioned and did his own business for a while.
Okay.
probably for about 5 to 6 years, but predominantly panel beating. But
Yeah.
then that's a really hard trade, and
I know, I feel sorry for their fingers all the time.
yeah, and just the fumes and
Yeah,
the back. So
yeah.
he reached a point when he's like, I need to do something
I need
different.
to do something different. Yeah.
So he did cleaning range hoods. So that was sort of a big family business where we all got involved. And
Okay, what is it? Cleaning?
cleaning range hoods, so like cafes and restaurants.
Oh wow, okay.
And so we would help out on the weekend and stuff. But again, with that, because it's your own business, you know, that's a hard slog. But he did that for probably about 6 years.
Yeah.
And then towards the tail end of his working life, like, was a delivery driver.
Okay.
Sort of in the bakery. And my mum worked the whole time in the set of shops in the suburb where we landed, even though we moved away. Just customer service, and that was her network and her sort of outlet of meeting people, and you know, she loved working there.
Wow, that's interesting. That's awesome. So obviously, you being the youngest, I'm the youngest too. That's why I can kind of relate to you, because honestly, even up until today, it's like, you know, it's either they say we're spoiled when we're younger or whatever. Yeah, you always get picked on for being the youngest for some odd reason. I have no idea why. Nah, that's awesome. So yeah, obviously that's you know, that's very interesting. Obviously, you coming from South Africa and then living here. Have you been to South Africa since, like even for a holiday or anything like that, or not?
I have. I know. Look, and speaking of youngest being spoiled, I suppose I probably am spoiled. In that and fall into that traditional.
You should not admit it.
I know.
We you know, asked the youngest.
But my parents took me back in 91, so I haven't been back recently. But back in 91, they went back to visit family, and probably more to do with my age at the time. I went with them. But it was like, it was so interesting in that I didn't really have memories of South Africa, but when I arrived, it was like, oh, this feels really familiar, and it feels like home.
Okay.
And just being surrounded by, you know, people that look like me, predominantly. Like, was just this ease of, and seeing my parents at ease and catching up with family and just seeing them in a different light as well was really great.
No, that's excellent, because it always resonates with me when people say that, you know, going back to Africa, like not even just South Africa, but many people that go to different parts of Africa, that as soon as they touch down, like even if they were just born there and they don't even really remember it, but as soon as they arrive, something hits them. It's almost like the same feeling that you had, like I'm home. Like, I don't know what it is, and maybe I'm waiting for my time to go to Congo and maybe feel that experience, like, because I think a lot of people say that, and I think I just think there's something about home, like you can't, like you feel connected to it. I think a lot of people say that. So obviously you moving, like, you know, coming from South Africa and then you going into the world of, you know, APRA, was there many other roles you did prior to that? Like, what was your experience in work before you actually got to that stage in your life?
So a lot of it was, I suppose, during school was just casual jobs, predominantly customer service.
Customer
service. Did a long
service.
stint at McDonald's. So
oh, really? Okay.
That's a really great training ground.
A lot of people say that.
Like, you know, work ethic, and, you know, people stay on and do sort of management roles. But it was a really great social connection as well, like in terms of the team. So I did that, and then I just did odd jobs. So I worked in a video shop. So that was like one of my all-time favorites, and probably still is. In terms of being able to.
Where did you work? Like, was it Blockbuster, Video Easy? What was it?
It was an independent one called Video King. So this is showing my age.
Prior
to Blockbuster. And then Blockbuster and Video Easy was the one.
Damn, Video Easy's a classic.
So that then took over sort of all of those independent kind of video shops. And then worked at Video Easy. And that's when I was attempting to do uni, but I didn't stick at that time. So then I left, and thought, I'm just going to go travel and try out some different things. And then came back and needed a job and did that transitionary course, and then, found the job at APRA. And it was just something really interesting, and all of the different roles. And I've had many various different roles
definitely
within the organisation over that time, so which has been 20 years.
At APRA?
Yes.
Oh, so you've been at APRA for 20 years?
I have.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay. And the reason, I suppose, which, you know, isn't really a heard of thing much anymore, but there was quite a few people that have been there
for
a long time. In the more recent years, we have had a lot of sort of new staff and transition. But It really is just the culture and the people that work there that are all really passionate about music, but music from a different sort of sense, sort of the back end and administration, so that infrastructure and support.
Okay.
So, and being able to create and support those that create music. So that's the real common thread, because most people that think about music know a recording artist and know the performer, but what the world APRA operates in is about the songwriter, the composer, or the producer, or the beat maker. So that the person that creates the lyrics and the music, because without that, there isn't anything to record, there isn't anything to perform live. So
exactly. I mean, just on your experience, like, and obviously you understanding the scene, because I always tie it back to financial literacy, because financial literacy is so important. Absolutely. Like when we talk about, because we've, as I mentioned before in the introduction, we've talked about financial literacy many times, about how a lot of artists don't know too much about that, right? When we talk about the hits, when we talk about just ownership in general, like even how important APRA is. Are you able to explain just how important APRA is for any artist that's going to listen to this and think about, like, okay, I have a song right now, I'm developing songs, these songs could go into movies and things like that. Like, how important is APRA as a company, and why should people register for APRA? Like,
I might be biased, but I do think from a business and a financial literacy and just really being able to have a sustainable career, it's really important. Yeah. But most people don't even, would never know what APRA is. So,
So please elaborate.
To try and sort of change that, but
maybe that's where we could start it off. Sorry to cut you off. Maybe we could start it off. So so what is APRA? So for people to fully understand the structure of it.
So APRA is an organisation that was started in 1926. So in a few years, it's going to be a 100-year organisation. But it was started by music creators. So songwriters that said music shouldn't be for free, and we need to protect our rights, and we should be paid anytime someone wants to use our music, or that it's heard by an audience, or if a business wants to use it. So essentially we manage rights, and we're a member-based organisation. So we have over 110,000 members, and we basically create a streamlined way for music consumers, or people that want to use music, in a variety of concepts. So we've got a licensing team that collects the revenue, and then we pay out that revenue that we collect to songwriters, the people that create music, and they're our members. So essentially, we do a lot of government advocacy as well, but we manage rights, and we manage ownership of those rights of intellectual property, because our members have given us that permission when they sign up. So, and we do that on a collective basis. So we have a whole bunch of different clients in terms of people that use music. And we create that vehicle, sort of that one-stop shop, so that individual artists and people that create music don't have to think about and manage those rights. They can sign up to APRA, and what we do is we license, what we call licensing those tracks on their behalf. So if some of our clients are, Spotify, Google, YouTube, Channel 7, Channel 10, the networks, Netflix, all the radio stations, community broadcasts. So there's quite a variety of clients. So anytime, anytime music is used in those concepts, and also hairdressers, restaurants, cafes that are using music in their business. So we've got a wide variety of client base, and we've got quite a large membership base. So if you are creating songs even in your bedroom, and the use of technology has really changed the music industry in terms of how quickly from when someone can create a song to when it's out there can be a matter of it's the time frame's so short.
Correct.
And so it's really important to sign up to APRA, because we do all the tracking and the uses of those tracks once they are out there and audible to the public.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Because I think, there's even me myself back in the days when I used to do music, I think one of the things that I noticed was like I had been given advice to sign up with APRA, but for me, the process of APRA back then, I don't know what it is compared to what it is now, which maybe you'll be able to explain. But during that time, it was quite difficult, you know, going through the registration process and things like that. So was that something that was that feedback that was given over the years for that to become easier for artists to go? I mean, what's the process like now?
Well, there's an app now. So
there's an app, okay.
And there's a portal. So that's probably been in the last few years, like probably within the last 5 years that's been in development. But definitely the feedback from back in the day in terms of what got in people's ways was it's really tricky.
Yeah.
It's hard to understand. There's so much paperwork. To now where it is streamlined, where you can jump on a website, provide, you know, some basic information in terms of name, address, and just telling us what percentages in terms of who wrote what song.
Yeah.
And there's an app as well. So anyone that has a smartphone
is able to
get on there, join, and also keep track of registering their songs.
What do you think, like, and this is, you know, I'm trying to be very cautious about how I word this, but there is, you know, a lot of artists that I speak to personally, a lot of them don't know too much about APRA. I'm just talking about the youth, you know, people, especially the younger guys. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of artists that have been out there for a very long time that understand what APRA is, but especially with the younger people that I speak to, a lot of them don't specifically know too much about APRA.
Yeah.
What do you think the disconnect is between why people or the youth, the people that are making music, the younger generation, what's the disconnect between APRA and those people? What do you think that might be?
I think communication is a big sort of part of it, but also it's balancing that creativity versus the business administration. So APRA's very, you know, we're a data company essentially in terms of, even though we're part of a music industry, we're not as interesting or as, I suppose, exciting in terms of perception, like, say, the label side or the recording artist side. And the rate with which, the next generation, you know, and couple of generations compared to, say, my age is just phenomenal, right? So the way their brains work and the pace and, you know, so, and even the attention span.
Oh, yeah.
So it is just about us, and the onus is on us as an organisation to try and adapt and change, you know, and we've been really on a focus of that sort of, and look, the pandemic got in the way of really getting that momentum and traction of building that connection and understanding who our members are. And we really do see, that younger generation in terms of working out how do we present the information and just getting out there and making sure, you know, me doing things like this and reaching audiences in different ways. And presenting APRA in a way that's digestible to them and understand. But it's, I suppose, a work in progress. And, you know, other than to know that everyone I come across, you know, that I know is releasing music, I'm just saying, you got to sign up to APRA. It's really easy now. There's an app. Have a look. It doesn't cost anything. It's free. And I suppose it is about brand and perception. It's people go on the website, and often even broader is people think we're a government agency or that we are, linked in sort of within that sort of sector, but we're not. And so it is just trying to find that balance of how do you talk to and present info to a creative, essentially. And make them understand that you've got to build that business and that administrative and that financial literacy piece as well if you want to have a career. And if you spend some time, you know, doing that and educating, so education's a big part, or building a team around you that can do that, then you can have a career in music. And you know, when you get to start to dive in and learn about all the different revenue streams and the importance of owning your stuff.
You're owning your stuff,
rather than signing stuff away. That it really gives you leverage and control and options and freedom if you invest, like, you know, and I sort of say to people, it's investing in yourself. And putting that time. But, you know, I think it is just the next generation in terms of attention span. So it's really about being, presenting it in a way that can capture them.
Yeah.
That they want to, and that we, you know, someone like APRA can go make it relevant for them as well.
It could be like a marketing thing too, like you mentioned, because the attention to detail, like nowadays, everything's so quick. Like if you look at even just the apps, right? For example, like TikTok and Instagram, how people are just flicking through. So that's kind of what the new generation only really know. They only know like the apps and, you know, Facebook and, you know, quick information coming in front of them, you know, even just news, like news comes so quick. You know, when I was growing up, all that stuff wasn't coming to me so quick. I had to wait until, you know, I got home, and then from there I could, you know, watch news with, I could just hear it in the background. My parents watching news. That's how I was kind of gathering information.
Radio and TV.
Radio and
TV,
newspaper.
Yeah.
Correct. So now the information's coming so quick. So, look, I'm not, obviously you're the expert in this, but could it be the advertising maybe? You know, I guess that when you talk about how it's delivered to the kids, do you feel like APRA could do better in delivering it to the kids in terms of, like, as you mentioned, their website, it seems to be government. Could it be more fun? Could it be something more relatable to kids to be able to look at and be like, wow, I want to be a part of that? Do you think that could kind of be like where the direction that APRA should kind of be going towards? Or
definitely, and
that's not beating APRA up. That's just we're trying to look for.
I get it.
Trying to definitely look for ways for it to be, you know, much, you know, capturing towards kids to be captured to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose one of the challenges is we have over 110,000 members of all sorts of different ages, and I think what we're focused on is trying to really get a sense of who are our members in terms of demographics across a multitude of sectors. But definitely, you know, in the next sort of 3 years, in terms of a strategy, it's looking at all of those factors and going, okay, what is our communication strategy, and working on that, and knowing that the youth are one aspect of it, but probably even they're pre-members, they're not even members yet. And sort of we've got to do it in a bit of an incremental sort of kind of way as well, to go, who are our existing members, and sort of target and absolutely adapt and go, who's our audience? What's going to capture them?
Can I ask, is the labels, sorry to cut you off, but is the labels like, do they get involved in the registration of you know, artists that are under labels? Do they have to go through the process of signing with APRA first? Like, you know,
only if
or is it like once they're signing an artist, do they have to go through that process of actually registering with APRA too, or not?
Not necessarily. They only need to register with APRA if they're the original songwriter. So you might have an artist that records, that doesn't do original stuff. Most of the time, sort of in the last probably 20 years, you do see it's, you know, recording artist and songwriter. They do all of it. But it's not necessarily up to the label to ensure that. If they are doing you know, it's probably some of the questions that they do ask. And if they are doing their due diligence, you know, and they probably want to create and provide the most information, they'd be checking to go, do you write your own stuff? Then sign up to APRA. But it would be up to probably the individual to get on there, because they need to join up directly.
Because it's super important. I think that even just APRA itself could be in connection with a lot of these labels. I don't know if they are, but like, you know, just be connected to a lot of these labels, be connected to, you know, any platform that an artist is, let's say, for example, even building music, whether it's, you know, Fruity Loops, it doesn't matter what it is, right? Because that's the original stuff. Like, people are developing things from scratch. So there should be more marketing around, you know, companies like that, like whether it's through, you know, Spotify or whatever. Like, do APRA not connect with those companies in terms of advertising? Like, you know, when things pop up with apps, is that not something that they, because I feel like that is the reason why I'm saying that is because I feel like APRA should be targeting spaces where they know a lot of artists are building themselves up from scratch. Like, you know, automatically if somebody's using Fruity Loops, they're developing their own beats. To that, you know, for example, you know, if somebody's using those type of softwares too, they're also recording their own music. So people might not fully understand all that, but if there was something that was targeted towards those specific softwares, I think that maybe people could learn what APRA means more to some extent.
Look, definitely. And I think that's going to be part of sort of the next evolution of like, our communication strategy.
Yeah.
So we are connected with a lot of those platforms and different companies within the sector. But often they are our licensees. So we're connected with them in a different way. So they're paying us potentially, like using Spotify as an example. We would have to work out sort of what that dynamic is because they're a licensee. So they pay us revenue in order to release the music so that we can pay that back to the songwriters. So we're part of a music ecosystem, but we don't manage the rights that labels in terms of that recording space. So we work alongside them. But it's definitely conversations and things that, our communications and marketing team are looking at. What are the different ways that we need to connect? But it's also about not necessarily whether the strategy is sort of a membership growth, rather than sort of the next little while is looking at our existing member base and ensuring that they're straight with, they might have signed up 2 years ago, but never sort of connected or remain connected and, keep on top of their administration in terms of the song registrations and all of that stuff that's super boring for creatives that they just like,
they just rather, they just want to just create. They don't want to go through that process.
But it is really important, similar to contract, all financial literacy, all of that thing.
That ties in.
If you want to be a rounded and successful artist or have a sustainable career, you've got to double down in that stuff and you've got to start learning.
You've got to start learning,
us trying to reach, a different audience and the youth. And I suppose, that challenge for us is with such a broad membership base, from all sorts of different walks of life, different ages around the country, and we're a national organisation. The youth definitely and emerging, is a focus, but we also have to focus on those that have an element of an established career or they're, sort of gigging musicians and touring, and then also those that have had successful careers or are maintaining successful careers. So it's this balance of, and I don't know the answer, and that's why I don't work in the communications and marketing team, but that is one of the challenges, and I do discuss with them that we sort of face. It is just about trying to get the presence out there. We have an education and outreach team who talk about and go into sort of schools and tertiary or TAFE sort of levels as well. And, we are trying to focus on, just getting the word out there. But a lot of it is connecting and word of mouth, So I think that is one of the most, useful and powerful ways is people that have managed to find their way to APRA, because even people that do and they might join, their career might, go in a different way, or they don't necessarily connect with us because the royalties might be flowing through and they don't need to talk to us on a daily, but the money's just flowing through. But there's so many different facets for a creative and an artist to wrap their head around that often it just becomes so overwhelming.
It becomes overwhelming,
It's somehow to find a way, like you were saying, for APRA to get in, or for the right people that have a relationship, that are in the studios.
Correct,
that are with the young creatives, and maybe not only just the young creatives, they might be, I still think young is in the 20s, so the teens and the youth that are generating, creating this music, it's next level. But it is to just try and work out a way that while they're in there is to work out those song splits, and that's the APRA side.
Correct.
But a lot of the time people don't want to get into those conversations because it's a vibe in the studio or they're in that creative flow.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But it's really important to get that stuff solid, because it's really hard once the thing takes off and becomes this mega hit about who wrote what and how many percentage, who was in the room.
And that's where financial literacy comes in place.
Yes, definitely.
Financial literacy and trying to understand. And that's actually a very interesting point, because, like we always say, you just never know what can take off. And it's not even just that. Before you know it, they could see their music in films. They could see their music, being advertised in certain places, and they don't even get anything from that.
That's right.
And, half of the time, a lot of them are confused. They're just like, they will listen to their song, but they don't even fully understand what their rights are and what they can actually gain from that. So I think it is very important, for someone like yourself to educate on this platform for people to understand as a musician, like what are they entitled to? Because writing a song, you know, and you writing a hit and then it becoming global overnight, for example, because some of these young kids are getting that type of success, especially because back in the days there was no, you know, TikTok and all these things. Now they can put something out and it just takes off. So yeah, when it comes to the financial literacy side of things, how important do you feel financial literacy is in, you know, especially around APRA and things like that, like for artists to fully wrap their heads around?
It's vital. It's imperative. You've got to wrap your head around it. It's like intrinsically entwined. So, you know, I was thinking about this and looking at some of the stuff, you know, you wanted to sort of cover, and financial literacy is, it's just super important in all aspects of your life.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
of course.
And this is coming from someone who wishes they grasped that.
For
all you young people out there.
We all feel like that.
I wish I had really learnt it, and what I'm trying to instill in my kids is to talk about and be comfortable talking about money. Just how money works, how it influences the world, how it influences your creativity. And what I'm really passionate about is, helping creatives understand that importance of financial literacy. And APRA plays a key part of that because we pay royalties, so income, money, to music creators. So it's really for people that are releasing music, trying to understand the many buckets and revenue streams that are actually owed to them. So if you are a recording artist that also is the creator of the song, and you've done it all 100% yourself, you have like at least 4 or 5 revenue streams that you need to be aware of that you can potentially get out of any one song. And where APRA AMCOS comes into it is the royalty flow that is around the song, so the creation of the song. And if you are also the recording artist, then you have money as a recording artist that another organization takes care of. And that's the master, like that's when people talk about masters and labels, which is like the sound recording. So even knowing that if you're the recording artist and the songwriter, you there alone is just 2 buckets of money that you're entitled to, that you have the right to collect.
And sometimes you don't even know that you have the right to. You don't have. You don't know.
And that's under the Copyright Act, like the Australian law and the other international laws. So just by joining up to APRA, and it's really easy now, through the portal and an app, that money can start flowing through if, you know, the song gets traction and is being heard by an audience. So if it gets played on radio, that's the APRA. But then if it's being released and recorded, and you're getting sales from, like whether it be, I think it's mainly singles now. People are still dropping albums, I think, but you know, it's just a different game now. But there's money on that recording side as well. And financial literacy for me ties in because, you know, I don't know where I heard or something, you know, like every dollar that comes into your pocket should have a job.
And
so that's you've got to sort of make each one work. So if what you want to do is have a career in music, which eventually ties into, okay, maybe you want to own a property as well. It's knowing all of the different flows of like income streams that are available to you that you can, you know, potentially invest in the stock market or put into an account that, you know, earns high interest or compound interest over time. Particularly for the young people coming in, who most likely can have a hit on TikTok or
and it takes
off. Have a viral hit. All of this money starts flowing in. So how are they knowing what to do with it?
And how do they know how to manage those funds and all that
and
too?
Manage it as well.
Because a lot of them are getting success off, you know, a lot of these apps, as we mentioned before. And I think that as you've just elaborated on, like financial literacy, it's important that, you know, when you're very young, as even just parents in general, to educate your kids about that stuff, because nowadays they're the ones that are getting money without them. Like the majority of the stuff that they do is for fun, but they're generating money out of fun. Like, so, you know, when you do that, like, you don't expect to like earn $200,000 off a dance that you did on TikTok, like, you know, and and if you don't know what to do with that money, then things could go, you know, left for you very quickly.
And there's a whole nother, like, you know, in terms of the content that people are releasing on you, like
content, and
you've got money coming in from that as well. But in terms of, I suppose, tying it back to APRA, it is just, you know, you may get a consistent check that comes in. Like, it may not be $100,000, but it could be a few $100s a quarter that's rolling in. Yeah. That, you know, could be if someone was financially literate or they're, you know, growing those skills, put that into the stock market. Set and forget. So, over 5 to 10 years, they can, that's going to be a lot more money. Or, you know, into shorter term where even if it's a savings account, that's your next album project. Correct. Where it may not necessarily be able to pay your mortgage or your rent, but it's money that you're entitled to that you can investigate more on how to grow it by making it work for you.
Exactly. And you can invest that, and a lot of that money you can invest in yourself. You know, if you've done something on TikTok or you've written a song, like, you know, put certain money aside, and then that way you're able to use, because, you know, obviously they buy, you know, when you produce beats, you can buy different packages and things like that, you know. So if you want better quality sound and you're a producer and you know what I mean? Like, things like that you can invest money into. So there's so many things that you can just put money aside for, and like it all ties down to financial literacy, and also things like APRA, you know, just owning all that material, you know, and getting money for the material that you've made. So which is very important. So what advice do you give to, like, you know, especially with the kids? I know we've talked about so much about like ownership, but like, so right now, if you're an upcoming artist, like, what advice can you give to somebody? Should they sign to APRA like even before becoming an artist? Like, if you know in your head, like, today, okay, I want to be an artist, should you go to APRA first and then start being an artist? Or
you actually have to have created a song. And have it released or on a platform. So these days it's pretty easy. So like what you were saying in terms of the technology platforms and things that are available. So it's pretty easy to, I think anyway, get your song up on Spotify. And start making it audible to an audience. For me, it's at that point that, you know, a young artist should think, okay, I've just got to sign up to APRA because it's free. It takes not a lot of time. You know, they're pretty tech savvy. There's an app. It's pretty streamlined. And just keep us across all of the tracks that you're writing and the percentage breakdowns of who owns what percentage of the track.
And all that is
then the rest of it really just takes care of itself. Because we track all of the usage of that song. So if it starts blowing up or just getting traction across the different platforms, might get some radio play. You know, maybe someone wants to use it in an ad or someone wants to put it as a theme of their film or TV show. We track all of that income. And all an artist needs to do is just register with us to join and then just keep us across who wrote what song.
No, that's awesome. What we're going to do is we're going to put in all the links for even APRA too. Like, if that's put in all on the episode, because I think it's very important just for an upcoming artist when they listen to this episode, because this is one of many episodes that we're going to sit down and do, because as time goes on, and, you know, there's going to be so many things that we're going to continue to talk about, especially to help the younger generation. You know, let's hope that the older generation have kind of found their feet to some extent. I'm pretty sure not all of them have, because APRA could be new to them too, but at the same time too, like, it's all about the youth and them coming up and not making the same mistakes that maybe somebody else has made, and for them to be able to generate the money they deserve. Because right now it's, you know, there's so much music is being produced so quickly. We talk about that, like, literally one person releases a song and then before you know it, it's a hit. We can't keep up to all that stuff. So for them, and for being a young artist, the best thing to do is just protect themselves and sign to APRA, and in that way their music is safe and everything that they produce is safe. So I really appreciate it, Gillian, and I think that there's a lot to learn from this episode, especially as we mentioned about the youth and financial literacy and how it's tied into all these things, the importance of people, you know, any artist that develops a song and it takes off, for them to be able to, you know, take courses and understand how to manage their finances. Not only, don't do it when it's too late after you have a hit and then you try and figure out where your music is going, and before you know it, you've lost track of the music. You know, so any last words for, you know, anything around APRA, or any advice that you want to give to anyone or any artist or anything like that? I'll leave that to you.
Last words. For any artist or creative in the music space, invest in yourself, like you were saying, I think. But also just keep creating, keep creating the music. But sign to APRA.
Yeah.
It's free. It helps track your income. It provides education and a networking opportunity as well.
Yeah.
But, find that thing that you love to do. And if music is what you love to do, APRA and being across APRA and how the music industry works and the ecosystem and in learning that can really help support you having a career in music rather than music be your side hustle.
Side hustle, yeah, exactly.
It's sort of learning how all of those different sort of systems work is really important. And if you just want to focus on the creativity and the music creation, then build a team around you. Align with people that might have been in the game a little bit, who can, or that have different skill sets to yourself.
Yeah.
And, come together as a community, and build together.
Perfect. Now that's awesome. That's very good advice. And we'll leave it at that, because I think that you've definitely given a lot of game on this about APRA, and hopefully a lot of artists can now move forward, register, and hopefully own the rights to their music and get paid for it. That's the main thing. So thank you very much, Jillian, for being on Black Wealth Connect.
Problem.
I think this is
Thank
amazing.
you.
Like, honestly, I'm so grateful.
But this is what I'm passionate about.
Yeah,
this, so I appreciate the
humbled.
opportunity. So
no, definitely,
we'll make it happen.
Yeah, no, we're definitely going to make it happen. And thank you very much for that. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank
you.
Nice.